Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And very good morning to everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this morning for a special live session of Kindred Stories X The Thinking Muslim. We've got both myself and Muhammad bin Jalal, who is the host of the Thinking Muslim podcast. I think many of you have been listening to that podcast, and we are here to ask questions to a very good friend of mine, my dear friend, Mr. Sami Hamdi, who I've had on the Kindred Stories podcast before, who is a frequent guest also on the Thinking Muslim. Sami's here for a few days. I last saw him in London a couple of months ago, where he kidnapped me to Wembley, almost near Wembley. Industrial estate somewhere. And we had a very nice breakfast there. By way of introduction, Sami is born in the UK. He's intellectual, public intellectual. He's a very, very prominent speaker. He graduated from SOAS in the UK with a law degree and masters in law as well. But I think more than that, Sami has been perhaps one of the most important voices in the Muslim intellectual world, speaking about geopolitics, speaking about the Muslim Ummah, and also touching on things that many governments and political leaders are unwilling to touch on and to speak about. I'm a big fan also of the Thinking Muslim podcast, Muhammad Jalal's podcast, and it delves into very, very important themes and issues. I'm not going to speak much by way of introduction. We have about a couple of an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on questions also from the floor. We'll open that up a bit later. But I think by way of introduction, I told Sami that we wanted to focus on the geopolitics of the Muslim world. There's been a lot of despondency in the Muslim world, especially with the genocide in Gaza. Despondency at the way that the Muslim world has responded, the seeming lack of disunity in the Muslim world, helplessness amongst Muslims around the world that we cannot do more, especially witnessing on a daily basis the slaughter, the massacre, the genocide that's taking place with impunity, no adherence to international law, no recrimination to the regime that is perpetrating this genocide, and that is exactly what it is. And despite, of course, the voices, Muslim voices around the world condemning the genocide, there's been very little action from governments, Muslim majority countries, really to stop what is happening. And I think Sami will be able to give us the lay of the land in terms of the geopolitics, who's aligned with whom, why there hasn't been an adequate response, why there's seeming disunity, why people are not responding the way we hope they're responding, and contextualize this within the broader power dynamics of the world today, the United States, Trump, and of course, perhaps touching a little bit on the geopolitical rivalry in Asia with rising China. So with that, maybe before we go into Sami, I just turn over to Muhammad Jalal. If you want to touch on anything, Muhammad, before we start with Sami.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. And thank you so much for inviting me and inviting us to the session today here at this wonderful bookstore and in this wonderful city. Alhamdulillah, I've been here now for a half a week, and I really love this place. And I think it's the people that I've met here are wonderful, and the conversations I've had here are really profound. And I mean, Sami says this all the time to me, but you need to get out, Jalal. You need to leave London sometimes. And he's probably quite right. The more you travel, the more you you visit areas like this, the more you realize that there are different perspectives, different ideas, different people, different viewpoints. And I think together as a community, as an ummah, if we work together, we are able to improve our situation one conversation at a time. I'd like to thank Brother Khairy for inviting me and for inviting us today. And Brother Khairy, I've really admired from afar, and some of the work that he does, the Kindred Spirits podcast, I think is a really wonderful initiative. So Jazakallah Khair, Brother Khairy, for your very kind invitation. In fact, a few days ago, I said, Brother Khairy, I know the tickets have been sold out, but do you mind sneaking me in to your event today? And he said, no, you need to come in. You need to be the moderator. In fact, he asked me to be a speaker with Sami. I said, no, that's not possible with Sami.
Yeah, because once Sami starts, you'll see.
You get no space. I remember when Imam Tom said to me, he was on a panel with Sami. He said, I regretted it because Sami's answers, mashallah, he loved it, of course. But he regretted it because of your long answers. So, alhamdulillah, we have Sami with us today. And Khairy, do you want me to start?
Yeah, sure, Jalal. Yeah, please, kick it off.
Sami, we've lived through probably the most hurtful, painful 2 years I can think of as a Muslim. You know, as I think I've never cried so much. I've never felt so much pain as I have in these last 2 years. And the pain, I don't know how to quite explain the pain, because the pain is on so many levels. It's a visceral pain when you see children dying in front of you on screens. It's a really deep pain, but also it's a pain of a failure, a sense of failure. We failed on so many levels. We've failed. We have plenty. We have, you know, today at our hotel we had this lush, lavish breakfast, and it brought back to me just the sort of the split screen moment, they call it, where you see on one side these people dying helplessly, being destroyed by an army that is backed by the powerful nations of this world. And then you see the Muslim Ummah and our failure collectively, whether it's at a leadership level or at a base level, to resolve this matter. So my question really to you to start with is just explain that pain and explain why that pain has not been resolved after 2 years, Sami.
Bismillah wa salatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Rasulullah. First of all, thank you very much, Khairy, for hosting us. Joe, it's good to see you here instead of the podcast room. And thank you to everybody for being here. I should stress, first and foremost, the views expressed on my own, they don't reflect those of Kindred Stories. They don't reflect those of Khairy or Jalal or anybody else. Just to be absolutely clear before everybody starts bracing themselves. I'm joking. But in any case, no, I'm not joking about the part that is my views. They're my own views. I think that when we talk about the pain, I think that the pain stems from the idea that we were sold a vision that this is a world that is governed by laws. There's an international order. There are international courts. There's a sense of morality, it's human rights. There's a sense that if we achieve some sort of democratic system and human rights system, that the natural pity of man by which they look to one another to lift each other up, that this is something that is common throughout all of humanity. And that perhaps the issue of Palestine was one in which people heard about it but hadn't seen it. And if they were able to see it, they would move in order to resolve it. And we found that when they saw it, in fact, they didn't move to go and resolve it, but rather it had always been that they knew what was happening, but rather that they knew what was happening and they were supporting what was happening. And even if it's a genocide, they continue to support the genocide that is happening. So our notions of how the world should operate or how we thought the world operates has come crashing down all around us. And I think the pain stems more from this idea of a crushed hope as opposed to the reality of what's happening. And the reason why I say this is that if you look historically at the way the world has operated over the past 100 years, less than 100 years ago, much of the world was under official colonization. It was officially colonized. My parents are from North Africa, Tunisia, and Algeria. The French flag was waving in the official buildings of those countries. And the French slaughtered 50,000 in 1945 in Stif, Kharata, and Gelma because they asked for equal rights and they asked for independence and for their right to self-determination that was written in the Universal Declaration of human rights. I think what happened is that we had developed this hope in how the world should be. And what happened in Gaza brought it all crashing down. And we realized we were the only ones who truly had that belief that the world operated in this way, while those committing the genocide and supporting the genocide still had the same colonial mentalities that is supporting the genocide today. When the German Chancellor Merz says that Israel is doing our dirty work for us, says it publicly, openly, it is reminiscent of Mitterrand in 1992 when the Muslims were being slaughtered in Bosnia, and when Clinton asked Mitterrand and said, shouldn't we intervene and do something? And Mitterrand said, listen, it's only the Muslims who are disadvantaged, and we would prefer to lock in this disadvantage because a Muslim majority democracy in the heart of Europe is an unnatural phenomenon. Bosnia does not belong. And the British Foreign Secretary said, as recent as 1992, said that what's happening in Bosnia in the killing of Muslims is a painful but necessary for the reconstruction of Christian Europe. What I mean is the signs were always there. I think the pain is coming in the sense of we somehow became detached from this reality. Why? Because our lives were okay and we were disconnected from those whose lives were not okay. We built lives of comfort and success, and we were no longer connected to those who weren't living those lives that we were living. Palestine was always under apartheid, but somehow because we were able to scroll past it on social media, it wasn't directly intervening me. I could enjoy my nice breakfast, but Gaza is now banging on my window. It's barged through my door. It's barged into my home. And suddenly I'm asking myself, where has my comfort gone? Where has my safe space gone? Why is this always in my face? What happened to the times when I could just switch off and go for a run or a walk or go next to the rivers and the lakes? And I think the pain is not to do with the genocide itself, although it's painful. The pain is now when you are asked to step up, we don't know how. When we're asked to take a position, we don't know what that should be. When we're asked to demonstrate power, we don't know where to find that power. The pain is not in the genocide. The pain is, what am I supposed to do given that this is all banging on my window? And I think this is a good pain in the sense that what's happening is we realized that we were sleeping through this life. We were sort of coasting through it. We study and we go to uni, we get a good degree, we get a good job, we get good money, then we buy a house and then we get married. Well, I got married before the house. But anyway, you get married and then you have a family and then you have kids and then you raise them and then you put them in uni and then they get good jobs and then you buy a summer home and then you retire and then you go to your grave. What Gaza showed you is that is a myth of a life, that this life is about struggle. It's about standing for what's right. And the pain is, how do we stand for what's right? And that's what we're here to discuss today.
So following on from that, Sami, we feel helpless. We feel that it's impossible now. We've tried everything. We've sent out social media posts. We've gone on demonstrations. We've protested. We've boycotted. We've done so many things. And you will argue that these actions are amiable and correct, and we need to continue to do that. But the genocide continues. Is there anything we can do as an ummah to stop this genocide?
I would push back on the premise that we've done everything that we can do.
Okay.
And I'll give you some examples. When Trump imposed tariffs on Europe, the French President Macron came out and said that he came out with the French companies and told them, I forbid you from investing in America. And I forbid you from expanding your investments, because what message does it send if we're investing in someone who is attacking us? That was Macron. Macron was talking about the French Izzat. Macron was saying we do not invest in people who are attacking our economy. Meaning, the idea being that if you have somebody who is counter to your interests, you apply punitive measures to pressure them into stopping attacking. When you say that we've done everything that we can do as an ummah, America is the reason why Israel is able to continue the genocide. You will agree with me. Tomorrow they can pick up the phone and stop the genocide. Meaning that if you apply enough pressure on the US, you can get the US to stop the genocide. Now, the views expressed here are the speaker's own. I need to be very careful with this next part. I want you to imagine with me that we're sitting in the White House with Donald Trump and somebody walks in called Muhammad Jalal or Khairy Jamaluddin and they say, guys, I'm telling you, the Muslim world is angry and the Muslim world are thinking about how to punish you for supporting the genocide. Let me tell you how Trump or Biden responded. What are you talking about? Anwar Ibrahim just bought Boeing jets off me. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I just spoke with the Saudi Crown Prince about more investments in Vision 2030 and about the need to establish a security agreement, a NATO-style security agreement against the Iranians. The UAE is about to invest 26 billion and then more recently about to spend $1 trillion into the US economy. The Saudi Arabia is about to invest 1 trillion in the US economy. The Qataris are about to spend 1.4 trillion in the US economy. Erdogan is about to buy 35 F-35 jets for his army and the like. And Hakan Fidan was in Washington hugging Marco Rubio because they want to have access to Syria and they want to have their interests established in Syria itself. I'm sorry, Khairy, I'm sorry, Jalal. What are you talking about that the Ummah is upset about what's happening with the genocide? We see the flotilla, we see they're not allowed to leave from Turkey, they have to leave from European states instead because the Muslim states are saying we don't want to offend the Israelis. We see that the aid is being blocked not only by the Israelis, but the Sumud convoy that left Tunisia and Algeria to go to Gaza, it wasn't stopped at the Israeli border between quotation marks. It was stopped in Sirte in Libya. It was stopped in Cairo in Egypt. You're saying the Ummah is angry, but I get red carpet treatment everywhere that I go. Blinken goes to Laos for an ASEAN forum and then sits with a Malaysian prime minister who says to him, we're upset about Gaza, but we want to be the new semiconductor hub because we know you've got problems in Taiwan. You can set up here in Malaysia here as well. It's not about attacking Anwar Ibrahim. My point is this. If you are an American official who has heard on a Kindred Story podcast that the Ummah is angry at what's happening on genocide, you're weighing the words of Khairy and Muhammad Jalal versus the actions of the Muslim leaders. Can you blame the Americans for believing that they don't need to stop the genocide because there is no punitive cost they will pay if they continue that genocide? And I want to just emphasize this particular point here because sometimes I get told by a lot of Muslims that I focus a lot on Muslim leaders and not enough on Western leaders. Imagine we have a mathematical equation. Is America doing anything unusual in its support for the Israelis? Is it doing anything that it hasn't done before? Is there something strange or new in the way it's supporting the Israelis? Nothing, right? Is there anything new or strange in the way the Europeans are supporting the Israelis in a genocide? Have they shocked you in any way in terms of their support? So the equation on the X side of things is exactly the same, firm support of the Israelis. What has changed is the Y angle of the equation. Once you had King Faisal doing oil embargoes. Once you had Malaysia threatening punitive measures. Once you had Turkey and Egypt threatening punitive measures. What's changed is not the X side of the equation. What's changed is the Y side of the equation. What's changed is instead of Muslim leaders saying stop the genocide, you have the UAE Foreign Minister Abdullah bin Zayed who says this ends when the hostages are released. Something not even the Israelis are saying. The Israelis are saying if the hostages are released, we still continue the genocide. UAE is repeating what the Israelis are no longer repeating. Bob Woodward, just to emphasize this point, I won't go on too long about this because I'm notorious for the length. But
sorry,
Bob Woodward wrote that when Blinken went to the Muslim states, and this is the point when I said imagine yourself as an American official. Bob Woodward wrote that the Americans were worried that when they land in the Muslim nations, they're going to hear a tirade from the Muslim leaders about what happened in Palestine. And they were bracing themselves for it. He said, we were stunned to find that Muslim leaders were telling us, we share the same goals. If your aim is to remove hummus with the pita bread, then we're with you on that. Like, go ahead, like continue until you finish in that regard. And then they went to UAE, found the same thing. They went to Egypt and they found the same thing. Even Donald Trump, when he went to the visit, you'll remember that when he was going to the region, the mood was he might either announce a Palestinian state or there might be a ceasefire. Just for those who think it was an exaggeration, France and the UK at the same time of the visit both announced that they would hold a conference to recognize a Palestinian state. Why? They interpreted Trump's visit as a turning point in terms of the genocide that's going to take place. So if Trump is going to announce it, let's also us announce it at the same time. When Trump landed, and this is the point I want to make, when you say the Ummah has done everything it could, when he landed, he's expecting to hear, Mr. President, we need you to stop Gaza. Instead, the first thing he hears is, Mr. President, Iran is really annoying me. Mr. President, I need a NATO-style security agreement. Biden kept telling me I had to normalize. I can't normalize because these wretched Malaysians who are coming for Hajj and Umrah keep wanting to make dua for Palestine. And I'm worried if I normalize, then somehow there'll be a backlash from the Ummah and this kind of thing. I can't, but Mr. President, I'll give you $1 trillion in jizya. No, I don't mean that part. I'll give you $1 trillion. I'll give you $1 trillion. If you will give me the NATO-style security agreement against the pro-Iran militias to my northern border, against the Houthis in the south, because when they hit my oil facilities in 2019, you were a naughty boy and you did nothing. Now I'll give you $1 trillion, but you promised a security agreement. Trump goes, oh my God, that's amazing. It's awesome. I'll do it. It's amazing. Second thing, Mr. President, he says, they're getting ready. Is it Gaza? No. Mr. President, I think Iran is going to have a nuclear weapon and I can't allow them to have a nuclear weapon if I don't have one. Mr. President, I want you to give me nuclear technology in order to develop my own nuclear weapon. Is that what you want? Okay, I'll talk to Bibi and Netanyahu and we'll give you the nuclear technology. Mr. President, I have a third demand. What's your third demand? Bracing yourselves for Gaza. The third demand. Mr. President, Vision 2030 is not doing very well. The line, I've had to make it shorter. I'm losing a lot of money. I'm burning through the treasury. Mr. President, I want you to publicly endorse Vision 2030 so that American companies can come and invest, because Malaysians won't invest in bikini beaches. They won't invest in Al-Ula. They won't invest in the like. I need the American companies to come and do so. Malaysians can do Umrah and Hajj. That's perfectly fine. Labbaik Allahumma labbaik. Labbaik Allahumma labbaik. But the rest, I need the Americans to come and invest in it. He says, I will endorse Vision 2030. Then when he sees the press conference, he sees at the bottom, there's a brief mention of Gaza. Mr. President, we just need this just to keep Muhammad Jalal and Khairy quiet. Then they go to the UAE. UAE says, how much did bin Salman give you? Say $1 trillion. Mr. President, don't listen to that guy. Because we want to split Yemen in two, we want to split Sudan in two, and we want to split Libya in two. And we normalize with the Israelis. He's too scared to do it. We'll give you $1 trillion or $1.2 trillion if you make sure you listen to us instead of Trump. He goes, this is so awesome, it's wonderful. Then he goes to the Qataris. Now the Qataris wanted to talk about Gaza first. But when they saw that Trump, that Saudi, bin Salman and UAE had given all this money, they remembered the blockade of 2017 when Trump allowed it. So they said, Gaza, I love you, but these guys might blockade me again. So they said to Mr. Trump, to Donald Trump, they told him, Mr. President, we want to talk about Gaza. He goes, okay. We'll give you 1.4 trillion plus a Boeing 747, a palace in the skies, Mr. President, if you promise not to listen to bin Salman and bin Zayed when they tell you to blockade me and threaten. The point that I'm making here is this. You said the Ummah is doing everything it can. The Americans, I think, are stunned that the Ummah is refusing to do what it can to stop this genocide. The Americans and Europeans are stunned that they watch a Kindred Stories podcast to watch Muslims cry about Palestine when they say that their leaders themselves, that they're not even talking about it or talking about how to end that genocide itself. And that's why I argue that the greatest allies of the Muslim rulers who are complicit in genocide are not America or Europeans, it's Muslims who refuse to apply that pressure to force them to do so. And I finish just on this point to give you the Malaysian example. China, to punish Trump for the tariffs, canceled the Boeing orders. There was no reason why Boeing, which is crashing in India and which is having faults in America, there was nothing that forced Kuala Lumpur to go and buy those jets. No one forced. China said, I'm not buying it because you put tariffs, I'm going to punish you. But no one told them to go and buy it. And this is the point that I'm making here. It's that, Ibadallah, the X equation is as it's always been. But the genocide is because the Y equation is broken. And we need to fix that Y equation.
Sami, I just want to jump in. Thanks for explaining it as X and Y. I think that's quite helpful for the discussion. Sami, maybe you can take us through your thinking about why the X side of the equation, the Muslim side of the equation, has broken. I mean, what led to this state of competitive sycophancy, if you like, amongst Muslim elites around the world, basically racing against each other to please Washington? What happened along the way, and where is the unity that was displayed during the oil embargo, and what led to this?
I was in South Africa a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that's interesting about South Africa is there is a heavy US Zionist pressure now on the South African economy because they took the case to the ICJ. So I asked some officials when I was there in South Africa, I said, with the greatest of respect, did you guys not anticipate that there would be an economic backlash if you challenge the Zionists in the ICJ? Look at the naivety. They said, we expected that when we took to the case to the ICJ, more than 50 Muslim countries that refuse to take it might help us to resist the incoming pressure that's going to come from the Americans and the like. We thought perhaps the 3.4 trillion that they would give to Trump might come to South Africa on the basis that if Malaysia's not going to do it, if Saudi's not going to do it, if Turkey's not going to do it, if Egypt's not going to, if Tunis is not going to do it, if Algeria is not going to do it, if the South Africans are going to do it, thank you. You know when you push your little sister to ask for the, your parents for it to do, because if I asked, the mum would say no, but you ask your little sister to do so. If South Africa is going to do so, you give a reward to South Africa. Instead, I heard from some South African officials that when they went to the Muslim countries, they said, thank you for taking the case to the ICJ, but everything we're willing to do must be within the framework of what doesn't upset the US. We don't, if they're angry with you, we don't want them to be angry with us. So we're not going to support you in that regard. But perhaps the best answer I can give to this question is this. I believe that there are some countries, and I'll give credit where credit is due. I believe that in Putrajaya right now and in Ankara, there are people sitting here whose hearts are genuinely bleeding for Palestine. I don't deny that at all. But I want to consider what would happen geopolitically if they were to take a position unilaterally on their own. And this will emphasize the fear. I wouldn't call it sycophancy insofar as I would call it a lack of belief in the ummah that is supposed to stand for what's right. Let's take Erdogan for example, because Jalal always says I'm soft on him, apparently. Let's say that Erdogan tomorrow was to provide Bayraktar drones to the Palestinians to help them to resist and was to announce the complete cutting in trade with the Israelis. The immediate reaction from Washington on Kuala Lumpur would be sanctions. On Ankara, but I'm applying it to both apply together. So Ankara and Kuala Lumpur would be sanctions. Let's suppose Anwar said, you know what, let me join him, yallah. Sanctions on both, right? Now, when the sanctions take place, it means you start going through economic crisis. Who feels the pain? The Malaysian people or the Turkish people? Now, the prime minister in this point has two options, or the president in the Turkey example, which is, what level of pressure are my people willing to handle for this? Because they're telling me to do something for Gaza and I've decided to do something. But now there is that counter that's taking place. And now there's pressure. Now iPhones are a bit out of reach. Now maybe, 3-bedroom flats are not as easy to get anymore. Suddenly, employment is not as easy. Suddenly, things are getting a bit tough. I think the key reason is this. Erdogan looks at his people and says, I know you think you know what you want, but I know what it is you don't want. You guys will tell me, well done for 1 month. You'll tell me, well done for a month and a half. You might tell me, well done for 2 months, but after 2 months and a half, you'll accuse me of political stupidity. You'll say, why did you make us poorer? Why did you make life harder? Why did you use awful power? Was there not a clever way of doing it? Why don't you focus on Malaysia first? Why don't you focus on Turkey first? And the very people calling on Erdogan and Anwar to do something today will be the first people on the streets to topple that government because they weren't able to provide for you domestically, because they took a stance with regards to Palestine. And this is the point that I'm making. It's less about sycophancy and more about what they believe to be realpolitik, which is that ultimately, I don't trust my people to stand with me. I don't trust my people to weather the storm with me. I don't trust them to wrap their stomachs, put the rock and wrap their stomachs and go hungry for Gaza. I don't trust them to struggle with me. And that's why let them shout, but I'll still be in power. It's better than taking a position on Gaza. Then they sanction me out of power. And the people who are supposed to support me don't do anything.
Is that a fair assessment? I mean, if you were prime minister, surely you'd be thinking about that too. About, I don't want to put my people through this pain. It is enough that we are performative on Gaza, but when it comes to the real sacrifice of being sanctioned, that's not for us. And I'd rather protect my people against that.
I think that it sounds logical when you put it like that. It's illogical when you assume that you're not next. It's illogical when you assume that after Palestine and Gaza, somehow you will be safe in this part of the world. I was at a gathering yesterday of some Malaysian think tankers who were talking about America and China wrestling between the two. That now the pressure is coming to the shores. Now you're feeling it here in Malaysia. It's no longer as isolated as perhaps Malaysians like to think once upon a time, or even Indonesia. Now there's a wrestling match taking place. We see senators now talking about Singapore and it's, the US reliance on Singapore and how they need to push back against the Chinese. You're feeling that pressure that's coming here. That pressure is coming because of a sense of impunity. You keep ignoring what's far away. It comes to your door. And when it comes to your door, there's no one to defend you anymore. And I think this is the crux of the issue. What is the social contract between a citizen and the state? Is it that you feed me and you make me comfortable and you let me enjoy a good life? Or is it that we become a society of justice, a society of righteousness, and we do what's right because it is the right thing to do? And I think what's happening is that you ask the question, how did we get to this stage? We got to this stage by always taking the safe route, by going gradually, let's protect what I have. Let me protect my own castle. Let me protect my own fiefdom. Let me protect my own nation. And then they started swallowing up the nations one by one until now you have regimes that basically are more aligned with Israel than they are with the people, because the regimes ask America to protect them from the people. The short crux of it is this, and this is my point. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he described a time in which the enemies will gather on you like they would gather at a feast, the Sahaba asked the question. They said, Ya Rasulullah, when they come on us, will we be many on that day or will we be few? Will it be because we're weak, we don't have resources, we don't have numbers, we don't have talent? Or will we be many? Will we be able to resist with the resources that we have? He said, you will be many. You'll have resources. You'll have the Khairis, you'll have the Jalals, you'll have the Mus'abs, you'll have all Asiyas and all these others. But you will be afflicted with a resentment, or you'll be like the foam of the sea, because you will resent death, he said, meaning you'll resent anything that involves sacrifice, and you will be obsessed with comfort. You will have wahan. My point is, what's the social contract today? The first social between a Malay and the government. It's not justice or righteousness. It's, I need a house, I need food, and I need a job. I need to be comfortable first and foremost before you start talking to me about justice. The reason why I'm saying, and that sounds logical, is this. What was the contract between the Prophet ﷺ and his community that made them go out? The contract was not comfort. They knew when they pledged to him, they knew, because Abbas says to them, if you pledge to him, you're going to go through struggle. It's not a comfort. It's better, he told them, it's better for you to go back to Medina, because right now you're comfortable in Medina. Once you embark on this path where this man is telling you to care about Gaza and Palestine and the like, you're gonna go through fire. You're gonna struggle. And they tell him, Ya Abbas, we're ready for it. When the Prophet ﷺ tells them, when they ask him what's the reward, and this is why I argue that seerah is terrifying, because this is the answer to your question, which is a terrifying answer for me individually. I'm a hypocrite saying this because I don't know if I'm willing to do this. When they ask him, what's our reward? If I compromise the comfort I'm living in now for the justice of what's far away, which is politically illogical to do, which is a suggestion. It's politically illogical to compromise the comfort of a Malay or a South African or a Tunisian or an Algerian or the like for the sake of what's happening in Gaza. If we do this, what's our reward? He doesn't even tell them your reward is a successful economic nation. He tells them your reward is Jannah. If I said that politically today at a press conference, I would be laughed out. Really, I would be laughed out of the door. And this is what I mean in that. How do we view our role as an ummah? We're talking about ummah as united, but ummah means that Gaza matters to me as much as Kuala Lumpur matters to me. And it does not today. Neither for me, not for anybody else who's talking over here, which is why the Palestinians are cursing so much of the ummah. It's why they're saying you talk about ummah, but you don't act like one. Because when we ask you to sacrifice for us, you refuse to sacrifice for us. And the point I finish on is this. I know I've gone on a bit on this. A point I finish on is this. The genocide doesn't need military intervention for it to finish, for it to stop. There are enough diplomatic measures in order to stop it. There are enough diplomatic measures that can be taken, but not a single diplomatic measure is taken. And that's the heartbreaking thing. It's not the absence of power. It's the refusal to deploy the power, because the price of deploying that power is a price we're not willing to pay as an ummah. And that's the only thing I agree with your question when you said that we haven't done enough.
Can I ask about those diplomatic measures? Because I think this is really important. When we think about stopping the genocide in Gaza, the automatic reaction from the Muslim world is we don't have the military capacity to defeat Israel, let alone America. Your argument here is that it doesn't even require military capacity. There are enough diplomatic tools in our armory to stop this genocide. Spell that out for me. Imagine if 2 years ago, the Muslim world was coordinated and worked in unison and embrace this Quranic concept that you talk about of sacrifice and the Quranic concept of solidarity. what would you have expected from the Muslim world to stop this genocide?
When the French Parliament passed a law recognizing what they call the Armenian genocide, Erdogan immediately recalled the Turkish ambassador and kicked out the French ambassador from Ankara. When a Lebanese media minister criticized the UAE role in Yemen, the UAE immediately kicked out the Lebanese ambassador and withdrew the UAE ambassador from Lebanon. When the Canadian ambassador to Saudi Arabia criticized human rights in Saudi Arabia, just criticized it mildly, the Saudi Crown Prince kicked out the Canadian ambassador, withdrew the Saudi ambassador, and suspended contracts with the Canadian government. And the Canadian government came 8 months later begging the Saudis to restore those contracts. When the French public broadcaster published a documentary criticizing the role of the army in politics in Algeria, the Algerians recalled the Algerian ambassador, kicked out the French ambassador, and substituted the French language in schools with the English language. You can see how there are immediately diplomatic measures taken for things that relate to the direct interest. Lebanon altered its policy to appease the UAE. Canada altered its policy to appease Saudi Arabia. France altered its policy to appease the Turks. France altered its policy to appease the Algerians. When Biden said, I'm going to make bin Salman a pariah, bin Salman ramped up the oil price. Bin Salman began pressuring Biden. Bin Salman did it before the midterm elections again to punish him. And Biden ended up getting on a plane, going to Jeddah and fist bumping bin Salman and telling him, Saudi Crown Prince, please, please just stop it. I'm so sorry. I'm here for a reset. I'm willing to do so. I'm not talking theoretically. It's happened before. It's happened before. Once upon a time, Malaysia took a stance on India when it took somebody in, and India threatened with the trade deals, and India restored them afterwards after threatening. The power is there. But the reason why I think the power is not deployed here is that even on the financial side of things, the Saudi Crown Prince, when Biden said, I'll make you a pariah, he calls Beijing, Mr. Xi Jinping, come and I'll give you red carpet treatment. This time I'm serious. I'm going to shift to the east. Xi Jinping said, you keep saying it, but I don't believe you because you never put your money where your mouth is. No, this time I'm serious. I don't like Biden. Xi Jinping comes and he lands and they sign all these memorandums. He's like, I'm willing to put my money in China. The UAE, when Biden started pressuring the UAE, Abdul Khalik Abdullah, the prominent UAE academic, had a famous tweet 3 years ago where he said, when we were given the choice between American F-35s and Chinese 5G, we chose Chinese 5G because that's the future. UAE turned the other way, meaning they know how to use their financial power to turn the other way. They know how to use financial power to pressure the US. They've done it before. This isn't a new thing. They've done it before. So the question is not whether the power exists. The question is, why do they refuse to do it for Palestine? And I think that it's not just that they're worried about the Americans. Many Muslim countries agree with Israel's aims in Palestine. They agree with the obliteration of the current authorities in Gaza. They agree with normalization of the Israelis and bullying the Palestinians into accepting an agreement that they do not want. And not only that, they believe that ultimately, with the pressure that they're finding from their people, if they can provide comfort to their people, they can sustain that impact. And I just want to go back to his point, just to say one final thing here. It's easy to talk about Gaza because it's not in front of us right now. Everyone is a genius on the bench. It's easy to talk about something that you can just scroll past afterwards. But I want to tell you about an exchange where even me, who's a loudmouth, you know, my dad always says, why do you talk like somebody's chasing after you? I had been talking about Gaza for 10 months, going across the states in America and in Australia. And then one day I was in Houston, and there was this South African doctor who'd moved there, Sheikh Ammar Shukri, based in Houston, said to me, Sami, this brother wants to invite you for dinner. So we went. Then the brother says to me, Sami, I got a surprise for you. I said, what's the surprise? And he rolls out this 12-year-old kid in a wheelchair who has no legs, no left arm, and 3 fingers on the other hand are blown off. It was my first time seeing a victim of what was happening. And I froze. I suddenly couldn't put 2 words together. And I said, what's wrong? You've been talking about this for 10 months. Why have you frozen? And I blurted out, what football team do you like? And Ammar Shukri kicks me and says, hey, he's got no legs. What's wrong with you? I didn't know what to say. I froze. Do you speak with pity or do you speak normally? So then I asked the doctor said to me, Sami, today is a day of celebration. I told him, you twisted individual. What on earth are we celebrating? He said, Sami, we went to the doctor today. He's been here 3 months. Today he finally got feeling back in his fingers and he's happy because now he can put the phone on his elbow here and he can finally scroll and play games. It was a very dystopian room. So then I wanted to change I said to the mother who was sitting there, I said, what happened to him? She said, the Israelis had bombed a bakery in Gaza. And the kids had got together, these like 10 and 12-year-olds. And they had said, Ma, they bombed the bakery. There must be bread underneath the rubble. Because bakery has bread, right? We'll go and we'll dig through the rubble and we'll find bread. So she says, the kids went, the kids, like not adults, the kids went, 10, 12-year-olds, and they're digging through the rubble bit by bit. And then the kid finds a tuna can and he shouts to his cousins and he says to them, guys, I found something, I found food, I found, boom, it blows up the moment he opens it. You know when you meet a disabled person who's been born disabled, you're like, okay, he doesn't know what running feels like. The kid was running 6 months ago. And this is the point. Is the lack of willingness to move because it's not there in front of us? Is it because we don't know anybody who's going through it? If it was your child, if it was your brother, if it was your cousin, and someone said to you that it is politically correct that we do nothing, it's politically correct to go and buy from the one committing it, it's politically correct that we keep our ties, it's politically correct that we pursue our national interest. You're like, but my brothers had all the limbs blown up. Hey, don't be jahil politically, eh? Don't be dumb, don't be stupid. Even if your brother's legs are blown off, we need people to buy 2-bedroom flats. We have an unemployment crisis. We have the ringgit, you know. The more you put it into context, the more horrific it sounds. Because the crux of the issue is that we love to talk about an ummah, but we don't feel like we are an ummah. It's like Gaza doesn't move you the way it should move you. Ibadallah, they're blowing up the heads of children. They're literally blowing them into oblivion while we sit and discuss the political interest of an individual state. They're literally destroying entire families off the civil registries. And we're talking about GDP. They're literally destroying an entire population while we sit there and talk about the price of a cup of coffee. They're literally blowing up an entire homes while we sit there and discuss how much our comfort might be compromised if we take a position with regards to what's happening to Gaza. It is such a horrific way that the Ummah talks about Gaza. It's so disgraceful the way we talk about Palestine. It's so heart-wrenching and heartbreaking that the reason why we don't move is because we want to enjoy dunya. The reason why we don't move is because I worked hard to buy the house, I won't compromise it. I worked hard for my salary, I won't compromise it. I worked hard to go and buy good clothes, I won't compromise it. Don't tell me it's because of Gaza. The next week I went to Sacramento. Have you ever seen a child walk with one arm and one leg? I saw it. I saw it with my own eyes. I saw an 11-year-old boy who refused to sit in a wheelchair because it was beneath his dignity. And he would crawl on the floor on his side. He would crawl on the floor. And then they would ask me in the crowd, should we punish genocide? Because the other side might put a Muslim ban. And I was looking at the kid going, I'm so sorry. I don't belong to this ummah. I don't know them. Wallah, it's not me. Wallah, I don't know this ummah. This is not the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The reality is Khalid ibn Walid famously said, he said when he was fighting the Persians, he said, you are about to encounter a people who love death more than who love death as much as you love life. We're not that people, we're not. Think about the question that was posed. And I know, Khairy, you didn't intend it in that way. I know you did it. Think about the question that was posed. If I stand against genocide, should we really make people suffer for it for stand what's right? Ya Rasulullah, can't you find a comfortable way to give your da'wah? Ya Rasulullah, can't you find an easy way to make people become Muslim? Ya Rasulullah, why do we have to go and fight Badr? Ya Rasulullah, you know what? You don't know anything politically. If you were smart, we wouldn't be fighting Badr. Ya Rasulullah, if you were smart, we wouldn't have lost Uhud.
Ya Rasulullah, if you were smart, you wouldn't have brought the whole confederations to the gates of Medina, and the only plan you have is to dig a trench. You're digging a trench, Ya Rasulullah. You have no plan to drive them out. Is this politics? Is this clever politics? And that's why you get the leaders you deserve, not because they represent your values. You get the leaders you deserve because they say what you want to hear and they give you the life that you want. And when you complain that the leaders don't produce, the reality is the blame is not on the leaders, the blame is on us.
I think Jalal and I are always careful when we start asking Sami a question. We don't know where it's going to end up. I'm going to give Sami just a time to recover a bit. Jalal, I'm going to ask you this question. I know we're meant to be asking the questions to Sami, but I want to give Sami a break. How do you deal with this compartmentalization of what's happening, the pain, and then going back to life and doing whatever it is that we do on a daily basis? I mean, I have to admit that for me, it's this binary existence is very, very difficult because we, as Sami said, you can't avoid it. It's on your screen, and you feel very, very angry, sad, helpless. But then there's life to live, and then we are actually living through the biggest genocide of our lifetime right now. How do you deal with it, Jalal?
Yeah, that's a question I ask all the time. And I think we wrestle with this, with the challenge of living a normal life and dealing with our daily travails when there is a genocide taking place. In fact, there was a lady who spoke very eloquently about what's happening in Gaza. And she said something like, never in history have we had a people being annihilated and it's impossible for them to escape that annihilation. And just think about that for a second. Even in the past, when cities were sieged, there were ways out. These people cannot even leave Gaza. They can't leave this place. It's a gated, it's a prison for them. And so the travesty is that we are living our lives and we have this, there was an Indian thinker who called it an ambient genocide. You know, when you have ambient music in the background, the genocide is an ambience, right? It's there, it's constant. And there is a malign attachment to that word ambience, because when something becomes ambient, it no longer matters that much.
It's horrible. I mean, just hearing you describe it that way,
yeah.
it's horrible.
It's horrible, right? I remember the writer, I forget her name, of the Hunger Games. And someone asked her a question once. I was watching a program. What made you think of this Hunger Games? It's like Bazaar, right? These kids that go to a far off place and they have to kill one another in order to survive, right? What made you think of this idea? And she said, I was once walking past a department store. You walk past department and it was TV screens in the window. And on one screen, I saw it was 2003. I saw shock and awe. I saw the bombing of Baghdad, right? So that was on one screen. And on the other screen, I saw the Super Bowl. And I found that jarring, that you've got, a city that's being destroyed by a foreign army, and then you've got the Super Bowl. And of course, everyone's watching the Super Bowl. So I think in reality, I think what Sami is really saying, and I'm not sure if Sami will go this far, but I would say it, we have to think deeply about the way we think about our lives and the philosophy that governs our lives. And I think if we were to think deeply, we would realize that, neoliberalism has become so ubiquitous. This idea that you care about the individual, the self, you think about the self and the ego more than you think about the collective and the ummah. I think we have to address this not only in our communities, in our societies, but also as individuals, because it has become an ambient genocide. And, you know, I found myself the other day questioning myself, because after a while, I stopped looking at the horrific pictures and the videos that scrolled. I would scroll very quickly. You know, if it happened that, you know, a new massacre at one of these horrid sites, these American Israeli sites where they feed people, a new massacre happened, I would sort of quickly browse through it. And, you know, of course, one needs to take care of one's mind when there is this ambient genocide taking place. But at the same time, I began to wonder whether I was trying to say to myself that I have to forget this. I have to find a way of dealing with this and move on beyond this. So I think it is something we have to question. And I think potentially there needs to be a rethinking about the way we view life per se. And that's why I think the Gaza moment is a massive moment. It's not really, I mean, you know, sometimes we underestimate how seismic what is happening, how seismic it is, because in my mind, I personally believe that there is a reawakening, there is a recalibration of politics internationally, but I think there's a reawakening within ourselves, where we're reevaluating some of the sacred cows, some of the stories we told ourselves about how we are configuring our lives. So I don't know if I've answered your question, except to say that I've had to challenge myself in these last 2 years, and it's a difficult thing. Yeah.
Just coming off of that, Sami, coming back to you, Jalal mentioned this reawakening, this recalibration. There's a lot to be upset and sad about. But there is this, as Jalal said, this reawakening, especially amongst young people.
Yeah.
Not just Muslims, but young people of all faiths who are questioning the fundamental support for Zionism in America. There has been a shift in global attitudes towards Israel and towards the existence of Israel as it is today. Surely that is a good thing, even though we can't get our acts together as ummah, but there is a sea change in terms of people's attitudes towards what's happening in the Middle East.
I think that what Gaza was more than just the reawakening of the heart. I think what Gaza did was, in that desperation when we felt like we had no power, we began to do whatever we could, no matter how little, just to, not only just to make ourselves feel better, but the idea that we could continue our daily lives without doing anything became untenable. People started to boycott. They started to stop buying Coca-Cola. People started to stop buying McDonald's, which meant McDonald's had to shut down a whole load of stores. People stopped buying Starbucks coffee. The Starbucks CEO was sacked, and then the new one had to beg people to go back to buy Starbucks. Suddenly we were saying, hang on a second, we actually have power as a collective. Wait a minute. I thought it was only Muslim rulers that have power. Wait, I have power too. Wait a minute. So if I literally just don't buy this coffee and buy something else, that's having a collective and cumulative impact as well. We saw that it led to the ICJ, the TikTok. May Allah protect and preserve TikTok and elevate its status for this ummah in khair and barakah. Say ameen. And I mean it. Everybody keeps laughing about it sometimes, but I mean it genuinely and sincerely. Because it was the sheer volume of people who raised their voices for Gaza on TikTok that meant that it went into the homes of those ordinary Americans, the homes of those ordinary Europeans. And it resonated with their hearts so much so that Harris ended up losing an election because of Gaza. She lost by 3 million votes. YouGov says that 30% of the 15 million that didn't vote, the reason they didn't vote is because of Gaza. The 30% of 15 million is 3 million. That's the difference. The margin was so tight. Gaza swung the election. We saw that we're seeing now right-wing bases. Who would have thought that Tucker Carlson, of all people, would sit there and be the #1 advocate against Zionism in America today? Candace Owens, Karima, inshallah, قولوا ameen. Candace Owens, did you guys see the Ted Cruz interview where Tucker Carlson rips into Ted Cruz and just completely destroys him? Matt Walsh likewise, and there's a huge Marjorie Taylor Greene. Sean King said to me when we were in the car once, he said, Sami, you don't understand who Marjorie Taylor Greene is. She's the representative of the most racist area in Georgia. African Americans were told not to go to her area. She's now one of the loudest advocates against Zionism. But here's my point about the Ummah when you said that we've done everything we can.
Why has that change taken place? Because we started to deploy a power that we haven't maxed out yet. We doubted our ability to change people's hearts. When Gaza meant that in the darkness we just wanted to scream, we screamed not intending to convince anybody, and we found the whole world started shifting. The South Africans heard you and went to the ICJ, and as a result of the ICJ, they ruled Israel has to stand trial for genocide. So Itochu of Japan left the Israelis. Companies began to wind down their investments. The Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund began to wind down their investments, resulting in Zionists trying to pass a law in Congress to ban anybody boycotting the Israelis. But because you screamed and people heard your scream and they began asking, the Zionists tried to rely on their traditional allies, who instead decided to pull the bill from Congress, which meant that the bill was never passed. So they said, okay, let's ban TikTok so no one hears the scream. And then when the bill got to the president's office, Donald Trump's son walks into the office and says, Dad, are you really going to ban TikTok? And Donald Trump says, why not? It's really bad. It's really... And he says, but Dad, I like TikTok. I like using it. And it helped you a lot. So Donald Trump says, this is Donald Trump's words. He goes, Darren showed me TikTok and I realized it's actually awesome. It's actually cool. And now I'm not going to ban it. I'm going to go 50-50 with the Chinese instead. And the Zionists said, what on earth is going on? So the Zionists then went and they lobbied Trump to go to war with the Iranians. And then when Trump said, no, I'm negotiating a deal with them, the Israelis decided to say to Trump, okay, let's do a limited operation in the hope the Israelis could force him into war. So the Israelis decided to bomb Iran with Trump's permission, but Trump believing it would pressure the Iranians into a deal. Then when Iran hit the Tel Aviv back and the missiles fell on Tel Aviv, the Israelis said to Trump, they hit us. Come on, like Biden would intervene. Harris would intervene. Come on. And Trump didn't do anything first day. Didn't do anything second day. The Israelis said, hey, we're being bombed. Third day, fourth day, fifth day. On the sixth day, Trump comes out and says, these are two guys fighting in the playground. We got to let them have it out. And then when they're done, then we'll intervene and we'll stop. And the Israelis said, what's going on? So then they started a campaign in America, Why Israel Matters. The MAGA guys responded with an AI video where they dress up an American in a military uniform and they tell him, son, you need to go die for Israel. And he says, but mom, I don't want to die for Israel. And she says, shush, that's anti-Semitic. They were mocking the idea of dying for Israel. Bill Ackman likewise. The Israeli prime minister and the like was saying, Americans, Israel matters to you too. And when 12, 13 days in, Trump is looking at Tucker Carlson, who's saying we shouldn't get involved. Candace Owens, we shouldn't get involved. Matt Walsh, we shouldn't get involved. Dave Smith, Trump needs to be impeached if he goes into Iran. So Donald Trump, because of that scream, because of you here in Kuala Lumpur, because of us in London, because of those in Berlin, in Rome, because we actually decided to speak about it, because it became relevant, because we decided to tweet about it, because we decided to because we decided to do da'wah at last instead of sleeping, what happened was Trump instead went to the Iranians and said to them, listen, I need a way out. I'm going to send 2 bombers. They're going to bomb, but what did Israel say? These 3 sites. Do you mind if I do it? Iranians said, sure, no problem, brother. Tafaddal. They don't say tafaddal, that's Arabic. But they said, no, just give us some time. They pulled out the nuclear material, 2 days prior. Trump went and bombed it. He said, it was awesome, the most amazing fireworks. It was amazing. Then the Iranians said, Mr. President, we gave you this favor. Can we also, maybe just fire a couple of missiles? The Qataris, they said, sure, you can do. And Al-Udaid, 3 days prior, friends are messaging me, telling me, Sami, I'm just so you know, Al-Udaid is being evacuated. We don't know what's going on. And I was like, what do you mean it's being evacuated? 13 missiles get fired. And then Trump says, oh my God, we won. Iranians said, oh my God, we won. Israel goes, what the hell happened? And then the Israelis say, no, we need to stop the ceasefire. Quickly break it, fire missiles. Then Trump walks out on the White House lawn. You remember it. Israel doesn't know what the beep they're doing. You guys remember that, right? My point is, your scream, it was a scream, your voice, it has power. It shifted an entire US foreign policy. It stopped Trump from intervening in Iran itself. And this is the whole point. When people say, why come to Kuala Lumpur? Why go to these places? It's because the power is not there like you think it is. The power is here, even though I think you guys are here. The power is in you. The greatest myth that was sold to the ordinary citizen is that you have no power, is that your voice doesn't matter, is that you don't have the ability to make change. But you did, and you are making change. So it's not just a silver lining. I think what's happening is this. The rulers are trying to appease those who are committing genocide. The people are moving on their own. And we may not have the power that the rulers do, but we are manifesting a power that will have change that's taking place. Because ultimately Allah is in control. Ultimately Allah will decide when Palestine is free. I think what Gaza really did for us is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, Sami, you're not as powerless as you think you are. I gave you a voice. I gave you money so you would see how you would spend it. Are you going to buy the coke, or are you going to go buy, I don't know, Bashir's or Palestine coal or Gaza coal or that? Are you going to buy Malaysian goods like Modenis or whatever it is, etc.? Are you going to go and buy Marks and Spencer? That's all. You have power in your hands. It's about whether you choose to take it or not. And the final example I'll give is this, because I know this sounds like a mundane example, but it's a reflection of what can be achieved. I was in America, and you went to America. You've seen those Yemeni cafes. Oh my goodness. These places are packed until 2 a.m. and they're everywhere in America. And Yemeni cafes like it. So I went, I said, guys, how did you succeed? Like, give me the secret. I'd love to see a Muslim, like cafe succeed in the UK in this way. Tell me the secret. They said to me, Sami, brother, we set up in 2019. I said, okay, 2020, we made a loss. 2021, COVID, we made a bigger loss. 2022, on the verge of bankruptcy. 2023, we broke even. 2024, record profits. I said, what changed? They were like, come on, Sami. I said, what? They said, boycott. Yeah. I said, what do you mean boycott? They said, Sami, when people actually started thinking about where they put their money, the money just flowed. Sami, we can make big Muslim businesses. We can make big economic powers. The reason they don't exist is not because of the absence of money. It's because we don't take care how we spend. We don't take care where we go. We don't take care where we visit for traveling. We don't take care in these little things. And I would like to strike the parable with this. The Prophet, Umar ibn al-Khattab asked Ubay ibn Ka'b, what is taqwa? What is taqwa? We translate taqwa as make me feel good, make me feel nice, I feel Allah, I feel the etc. Ubay ibn Ka'b says to Umar ibn al-Khattab, Ya Umar, I'll tell you about taqwa. Have you ever walked on a thorny path? And Umar says, yes. Ubay says, how did you walk on it? He said, I didn't look at the road itself. I would look at the bottom every step I'm taking, and I would very carefully position my foot before every single step. He said, this is taqwa. Taqwa is being aware that everything you do can have an impact. Gaza is making us people of taqwa. It's making us suddenly raise our voice. The reason the Muslim governments are feeling the pressure, why Erdogan started cutting trade with the Israelis, is not because he wanted to. Yeah. It's because people punished him in the elections. The reason why Anwar is feeling the heat over Boeing is because people keep talking about it here in Malaysia. The reason why the South Africans are feeling pressure, the government, even though they're allying with some of the Zionists, is because the people are against Zionism and people are calling it out. Use that voice and raise it, and it is making the impact economically, politically, and policy-wise. And I finish, I promise just on this point. I promise on this point. The point I want to say here is this. There are some who will respond to me and say, but Sami, we're getting tired. You said this to me last time when we did the podcast last time, that, we're feeling fatigued and we're getting tired. Some people like to say, we're getting tired because we're not achieving the results. Whoever asks you that is a liar. We are achieving results. They said that when Trump comes to power, it will be disastrous, like for Muslims in America. Mahmoud Khalil, arrested, released. Rumaysat Oztur, arrested, released. Mohsen Mahdawi, arrested, released. American Muslims for Palestine, tried in Michigan, the case was dropped. Tried in Nevada, the case was dropped. They tried to pass the anti-boycott bill, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she pulled it. They tried to do a non-profit killer bill where the Attorney General would have the unilateral right to remove a tax-exempt status. Guess who removed that clause from the bill? Christian churches who said, why is Zionism intervening in terms of how we decide our non-profit? The reality is that people are making an effort and it's working. So the fatigue is not at the lack of results. The results are there. The fatigue, don't cringe and don't shoot me for this. The fatigue, what you claim to be fatigue, is actually a frustration at the pace that Allah has decreed for the liberation of Palestine. You're not fatigued because you're not having an impact. You're having an impact. What you're actually subconsciously saying, and this is the dangerous point when people say they're getting tired. What you're saying is, Allahumma, I don't like your pace. If it's not at my pace, it's not worth it. If it's not at my pace, I'm frustrated. Allahumma, give it at my pace. Sami, man, what's the point with this Coca-Cola? What difference is it going to make? We've been boycotting for 2 years. It didn't make a difference. That statement is saying, Allahumma, you didn't give me the result I wanted, so I'm abandoning your course. And that's the scary thing, what I mean, when you change the perspective. Yeah. We are having an impact. The reality is, hey, we're sitting here in Kuala Lumpur, from New York, from Germany, from UK, from Malaysia, originally Libyan. We have a guy from Sarajevo, Bosnia here.
literally all gathered under one banner, one ummah, one aim, one cause, all talking about it like we're talking about our own family members. Gaza has brought us together in a way we would never have been brought together here today. That's the reality, right? And the question here, therefore, is not whether our efforts will continue to have an impact. The question is whether this pain that we have, are we going to continue pushing through it? This struggle that we're feeling, are we going to continue doing it? This new mode of life, where suddenly we're thinking consciously about everything we're doing, are we going to continue thinking consciously like that? Or are we desperately trying to find back to the comfort that we existed? And I'll be honest with you, just to say this point, to go back to your question when you said, but we are having an impact, and you posed the question, I know you didn't intend it, almost like, at least kumbaya, at least we're having some impact. Guys, when Blinken wanted to ban TikTok, who was he trying to silence? Was he trying to silence the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman? Was he trying to silence bin Zayed? Was he trying to silence any Muslim government? Who was he trying to silence? You! As Secretary of State, China was no longer priority. Ukraine was no longer priority. Oil was no longer priority. Taiwan no longer priority. ASEAN no longer priority. Semiconductors. He wanted to silence your TikTok accounts. He wanted to silence your Instagram account. Sometimes at night time, my wife laughs at me. She says to me, what are you muttering in your sleep? And I'm like, take that Netanyahu. Yeah, share. Yeah, take that Netanyahu. Because people say, what's the point of protest? Naftali Bennett told Jordan Peterson that the protests have devastated our influence in foreign capitals. Now, I don't know what impact it will make, but if it annoys Naftali Bennett, who's a former prime minister of the apartheid regime, I'll go to protest just so Naftali Bennett doesn't sleep at night. I'll do TikTok, I'll do it. I'll be like, hey guys, I'm in Kuala Lumpur Fountain, free Palestine. You remember that football match with I think Mali versus Israel? And the guy said, it was a good match, but I think the other side, and the Israeli guy went, no politics, no politics. He went, I'm not talking politics, I'm talking football. No politics. Free Palestine, free Palestine. Free. The point is, look how it's changing on social media, on TikTok. And that's the crux of why we're here today. I'll be honest with you, and I promise this is the final sentence. I don't come here, I'll be honest with you. The reason why I'm always like is because I don't come here to lecture. I actually come here to plead, almost beg. I come here to plead because it's weird to see Blinken panic at your TikTok account and then look at your eyes that don't believe in the power that you have. Like, that's the strange thing. It's almost like Netanyahu believes in the power of Allah more than Muslims do. Netanyahu knows that da'wah works. Muslims don't know if da'wah works. Netanyahu knows that boycott works. Muslims doubt whether boycott works. Netanyahu believes that the ummah can make a difference. The ummah doubts whether it can make a difference. So who's closer to believing in the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
I'm gonna segue a bit and then let Jalal come in. You spoke about Iran just now, and I think we need to have this conversation about the house divided, so to speak. This schism that has existed for since the death of the Prophet, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I think complicates the geopolitics. I think a lot of people in the Sunni world did not know how to react and respond when Iran was being attacked. This obviously is being used by people like Israel, states like Israel, United States, to further drive a wedge in the Muslim Ummah. We have serious concerns and serious opposition to some of the things that have been done by Tehran. But what realistically do you see in this division of our house, so to speak? And can anything be done to reduce the conflict?
One of the things that I like doing is I like to watch podcasts in Muslim countries in foreign languages and then ask ChatGPT to translate, including sometimes the ones that you do in Malay. Why? I like to hear what conversations look like when you speak about them on your own terms, through your own lens, through your own culture, and what kind of dialogue that creates. The reason why I'm starting with this is that the reason Iran is so controversial is because those who followed Syria are saying, how are you celebrating those who butchered the Syrians? And those who didn't follow Syria are saying, why don't we have Muslim unity?
So one side is saying Muslim unity is not built on ignoring the blood that was shed of innocent Muslims. And the other side is saying that your blood is irrelevant because Palestine is everything. I don't think either side is technically right. I think the reason you have this dichotomy is we don't talk about our own issues on our own terms, and we don't have platforms that talk about Ummah's issues cross-border. There's a reason, and I don't mean this as disrespect in any way whatsoever. I think the reason Thinking Muslim did so well is because Thinking Muslim stepped into a vacuum by which you had people talking about the Ummah's issues in the Ummah's language, on the Ummah's terms, about the Ummah all across the world. And everybody went, hang on a second, all these debates are taking place about what's relevant to me, and it suddenly sounds. I think that if more people are aware of what's happening in Syria and the like and beyond, it's easier to navigate these controversies and come to the natural conclusion, which is, if Iran and Israel fight, I don't want to see Israel win, but I want to see I want to see Syria get justice for what the Iranians did. I think the contentious part of the debate comes when you're smothering one side. And the best example I could give here is Syria. Many people are criticizing what the Syrian government is doing now. My issue is not that people are criticizing. I mean, I'm the last person to tell people not to criticize. But in any way, what I'm saying is that you can't ignore Syrian blood for 10 years and then be loud suddenly after, there's this new place. There needs to be a humility about reconnecting the memories of the Ummah. And I want to finish on this particular point. I think, and I'm not ducking the Iran question. I'm saying the reason there is a lack of understanding on what the positions we should take is because our software, the iOS system in our mind, is not updated with the memories of the Ummah. Nadim from Sarajevo is the son of a shaheed in Bosnia. But many people don't know the stories of Bosnia, or what took place there, or what happened there, or the slaughter that took place over there. Even though it's a memory that belongs to us, that we're supposed to inherit. It belongs to us as much as it belongs to the Bosnians. Some Bosnians, they say the Ummah likes to fly over us, not to us. That's how do we inherit those memories? Kuala Lumpur, we had this discussion over breakfast at the industrial estate. By the way, the place is really good. He actually liked it. I thought, show him a je ne sais quoi. So I think he punished me by coming here to an industrial estate as well. I'm joking. But the point is, we were talking about this idea of who are the Malaysian heroes that I should teach my kids about? That the memory belongs to. I was in Cape Town, South Africa 2 weeks ago. I went to Masjid Awal. Does anybody know what that masjid is? The Masjid Awal, the first masjid. Oh, this is going to be so cool. Anyway, an Indonesian prince, just across your border here, was fighting the Dutch when the Dutch colonized this area. So he'd been fighting the Dutch for the liberation of Indonesia. And eventually he was defeated. So he was captured by the Dutch and put on a slave ship. They sent him to Cape Town because it was the most distant slave colony they had. When he landed, he grabbed pieces of paper and wrote the whole Quran from memory to make sure he would never forget it. Then once he became a free, he bought his freedom, he bought a very small building and converted it into a masjid and began teaching Islam there, and Islam spread rapidly from there. Now that's a story I'd love to tell my kids, but Malaysians don't make a movie about it, neither do the Indonesians. Now I know, for example, about the sultanates that took place here and how a Muslim Grand Admiral in the Chinese army convinced Emperor Yongle to send a fleet here to help the Muslims to establish themselves when they were under attack from the Hindu and Buddhist monarchs. I've never seen on Netflix a show about how Islam came to Malaysia and Indonesia. It's not because Malaysians can't do it. It's not because they lack the resources. It's not because they lack the actors. It's not because they lack the social media acumen. I've seen your social media, mashallah. It's not because they lack any of that. It's the imagination and creativity about what can be achieved. You know the El Toro series, let's be honest. It's a decent series acting-wise. Some of it is a bit too much. Sometimes it's a bit too much. It is. But what made it so powerful? The idea that I'm seeing a Muslim hero on screen. I knew it was propaganda and I got goosebumps still. I was like, Suleiman Shah says to Aziz. Aziz is like, I'm going to kick you dirty herders out back to where you came from. And Suleiman Shah, like just a normal tribal. He says, all of our lives, Allah was sufficient for us and He prevented us from being defeated by anyone. If your army is stronger than Allah, bring them. And I went, Allahu Akbar. My point is, I have a gap in my software about this part of the world because you guys are so stingy that you don't talk about your story. Why? Because you keep your Islam within your own borders. It's almost like you're talking about the Ummah without realizing that the very borders that we have in the Ummah are the framework within which we interpret our Islam. Now, when I entered Masjid Awal, I was in a group with Americans, Brits, South Africans, Indians, and ordinary Africans. And all of us, when you heard the story of Indonesian prince, you went, Subhanallah, what a mighty. Why did that resonate here? And this is the point I want to make. Politics, at the end of the day, and you will know this better than me because, mashallah, you know, you get kicked out of political parties and you mashallah, I'm joking. But the point, politics at the end of the day is nothing more than the science of human relations. That's my opinion. It's governed by socio-historical memories. It's governed by the stories that you're told when you're young. What America told the world is that the hero is Captain America. The hero is Superman. The hero looks white. The hero is an individual. The hero looks, we never countered that with our own stories. They told the story that, and we internalized that. My question is, what stories of the Ummah can we tell that will help us to understand Iran and the geopolitics on our own terms? And just so you don't take it from Sami, take it from the academic Wa'il Hallaq. Wa'il Hallaq has a very wonderful video in which he says that the Muslim world does not rise until it learns to talk about its affairs on its own terms, in its own language. And I think here is a good starting point, inshallah. And alhamdulillah, like, I hope some benefit in it.
Yeah. Be nice to hear from you.
Yeah, if Jalal doesn't have anything, I'd really like to open up the discussion. We've got another 40 minutes, half an hour or so, to any member of the audience who wants to ask a question. Please just stand up and introduce yourself and direct your question at Sami or Jalal or myself, and we'll do our best to answer. Anyone here with a comment or a question?
That mean I did a good job.
Just to...
Can I ask you a question, maybe? Or the audience a question? I don't know very much about how Malaysians have responded to these last 2 years, to the Gaza genocide. And I would like to know how you have responded. You know, what have been the positives? What has happened? What campaigns have you run? It'd be really nice to hear, especially from the young people here, about Malaysian activism, possibly, or about some of the achievements over this past 2 years. I don't know if anyone here wants to share with us.
We're boycott champions.
Really?
We're one of the top boycotting countries.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So anyone wants to respond to maybe Jalal's question? If I can see correctly, we have a member of parliament back there. My friend YB Wanamat Faisal. Maybe you want to say something? Waf? Oh, there's somebody with the hands up. Yeah.
Go ahead,
yes.
stand up.
Yeah,
Be bold, scream. I'm joking.
Islam.
I just want to, on this point,
Yeah.
I wanted to show you guys something, by the way, on the issue, because you said like different initiatives. You guys all have your phones. You have Signal. Can you open a website? Just open your browser for a second. I just want to show you this. Can you type in wordsofjustice.org? Wordsofjustice.org. So basically, the story goes that I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and this Pakistani Haji. I told the story last time on Kindred Stories, but I didn't show you the app. And he said, you know, I want to get involved. Elon Musk blocked me on Twitter, and I told him Elon Musk hasn't blocked you on Twitter. You've been suspended because they think you're a bot. What have you been doing? He said, I just share Palestinian content because they said social media makes an impact. I told him, did you tweet anything? He goes, I didn't finish high school. I love Palestine, but I don't know how to talk about it. I'm not as eloquent as some Malaysians. Anyway, no Hassan. Anyway, what I'm saying is, and then he said, I told him tweet good morning in the morning and tweet good night in the nighttime. And I thought that was the best advice I could give him. I went to San Francisco, went to these tech guys. They told me, Sami, with the greatest of respect, the advice you gave the Haji was really stupid. I was like, dude, I've never met you before. Like, who are you calling stupid? He said, if you just wait a second, brother Sami, tech guys are a bit like, he said, I'm an AI expert. I set up an AI database and I taught this AI the whole history of Palestine. And I taught AI to bring if you click support, all the tweets that support Palestinian tweets. And if you click refute, all the tweets that support the Israelis. And I taught AI to read it and to help the person to craft a tweet. So I have here, so let's have a look at this. Professor Jonathan A.C. Brown, he got removed from Georgetown University, poor guy. Ambassador Mike Huckabee, I have asked Israel to aggressively investigate the murder of Saif Musal, an American citizen who said, there must be, no, this is different. The Israeli Air Force is heavily bombing the Gaza Strip now, and the massive explosions can be heard all across southern Israel. Israel's right to defend itself is non-negotiable. Right, I want to address myself because Piers Morgan is in a moral quandary, right?
Oh, wonderful.
So I click refute with AI. AI reads the tweet and says, here I've got self-defense. How convenient when you're the one doing the oppressing. Now that's a bit too short. I'm going to click filters. I'm going to do length medium. I'm going to choose angry for the tone. I'm going to click generate new. Israel's phony self-defense excuse masks genocide. Occupiers don't get to slaughter people fighting for freedom. UN and ICJ rulings are clear. No right to murder while stealing land and committing genocide. Now, I don't talk like that on Twitter, so I need an academic version. Wait, academic tone, generate new. Can bombing the population under occupation truly be considered self-defense? Doesn't international law prohibit an occupying power from using self-defense to maintain control? Wouldn't ending the occupation be a more effective way to end the violence? Now, my pride was hurt because he said my original suggestion was stupid. So I said to him, okay, wisecrack. But the guy still has to find and copy and paste and find the tweet and what? He said, brother Sami, you're known for being like speaking very fast and you don't let anyone talk. If you just click reply. I click reply, and as you can see, it's automatically found the tweet and automatically pasted underneath.
Wow.
But that's not the best feature of it. This is just a random guy from San Francisco with his team. This is what I meant by people are innovating, they're creating, they're using imagination, creativity. If you go back to Words of Justice, now I said to them, guys, I've noticed that people want to engage politically. They want to put pressure on their representatives, but they don't know how. Not everyone has Khairy or Jalal's numbers. So how do we, put pressure on representatives and the like? So I was like to the guys, well, what stops you doing so? He goes, I don't know what to write. I don't know who to write, who to address, etc. So these guys heard it and they set up campaigns at the bottom. If you click campaigns, now this is only for America and Canada at the moment. It aggregates all of campaigns that activist groups have loaded onto a common database. So I have here, for example, call out Washington Post bias coverage of Israel's hijacking of Madlin. I worked in the media for a while, still do technically. The worst thing that media companies hate is when people email them saying they hated a show or they hated an article, which is why emailing is very important. But anyway, da'wah. So I clicked this one because I didn't read the article and I don't know what's in it, but I want AI to help me. So it gives you a general brief what the cause is. And then it tells you to put your name. I'm going to put Sami Hamdi. Tone and length. Angry, academic, sad. Let's go angry. And let's do generate. The AI doesn't generate the same email twice. To all. Reading your piece, Israel intercepts aid boat headed toward Gaza, detains activists on board, left me deeply unsettled. The way it leans into Israeli official narratives while brushing aside the purpose and urgency of the flotilla is more than frustrating, it's infuriating. Very eloquent. Calling the mission a publicity stunt strips it of its humanity and seriousness. That wording doesn't just minimize the situation, it actively distorts it. Even my auntie who can't speak English is using this. The Madeleine wasn't some gimmick, it was a lifeline, and etc. It keeps going. Your reporting doesn't seriously question the legality of Israel's actions. Do better. Regards, Sami Hamdi. Now, but the person still doesn't know who to send it to. He told me, don't worry, Sami, click send. I click send, I open my Gmail. Khairy, you can confirm that in the to section, it has automatically put 2 emails in that belong.
Washington Post.
It automatically puts the relevant emails that are already in. Now, my question to you guys here is, because I didn't come here to lecture you at all. It was just, I just answered Khairy's questions because he's a good friend. What I wanted to say to you here is this. You guys have ideas I don't have. To be honest, like you do. That you guys view the situation differently from me as a result of our upbringings in different parts of the world. We love the Ummah, but we're from different backgrounds. What I loved about the people who made these apps is they deployed their talents that I didn't have. And they used what they heard from here and they found a solution I could not create. The only reason I came here today was not to have lunch with Khairy. The reason I came here today was somebody here must have an idea. You don't need to tell me what the idea is, but somebody here must have an idea. And if there's anything that we can do to push it, anything that you feel can make the change. You saw the guys who made the boycott app, right? The guys who made the boycott apps. But do you notice that we don't have alternative apps? So for example, boycotting is easy. I was in Berkeley giving a lecture. When I finished, I sat with the students. They told me, Brother Sami, how are you finding the boycott? I said, well, I'm finding it hard. They went, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. I said, calm down, man. What's wrong with you? He goes, how can you find boycott for Gaza hard? I said, boycotting is easy. Finding alternatives is hard. I wanted to buy Timberlands and now I can't because they support Zionism. So my wife told me you can't buy them. And I went, inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi. They went, inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un over boycott. I told them the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was driven out of Mecca, Allah told him to leave. And he still said, wallahi, I would never have left you if your people hadn't driven me from you. They said, you are applying seerah, the Prophet sallallahu leaving Mecca for buying Timberlands. I told him the problem is you. You apply seerah here, I apply it here. Like, we're closely in jugular vein. My point is, we have a lot of boycott apps. But did the Malaysian not think about creating a Malaysian alternative apps so that people in London who aren't selling Coca-Cola can order whatever Malaysian drinks you guys have here? Did no one think that maybe they could create an alternative? I know you guys are not selling Marks and Spencer shirts anymore. We have shirts that can be created. This is my point. It's not that you said the Ummah has done what it can, and we're doing what we can. The imagination and creativity is. We always call Islam a conservative religion. Islam is not a conservative religion. Islam in the time of Quraysh, conservatism in the time of Quraysh was burying your daughters alive. Islam was an innovative religion when it came because it completely broke all of the social norms, and Islam innovated wherever it went. It transformed areas wherever. Islam is an innovative religion. Islam doesn't stay in, it goes out. Khalid ibn Walid never used the same tactic twice and he fought 28 different battles because for him, Islam was not a rigid idea of just rules. Islam was an idea that helped you to innovate and create new ideas. If you knew that people were boycotted, why do I not have Malaysian goods in my home that are filling the ranks of those Muslim shops that are in London? It's not because they don't exist. It's the imagination and creativity. And this is the point that I wanted to make by coming here. Ibadallah, I'm not as smart as people say I am. I'm really not. I call myself a carrier pigeon. I hear stories here and I pass it on here. I hear stories from here and then I go and carry it over here. I don't know what these ideas or solutions could be. I showed you an idea from San Francisco. I'm not the one who created it. Why? because I believe that this ummah has ideas. We just need to be imaginative and creativity and bring back that imagination. You're in a Muslim majority country. You can say things that I can't say in the UK. You can say things they can't say in the US. You have an environment that allows you to thrive in it. And that's why, and I leave you with this, I actually think that perhaps the thing that we Muslims should fear the most is not that Allah would hold us to account for what we did, but what Allah will hold us to account for what we did not do with the abundance of resources that He gave us. That I gave you a voice, why didn't you use it? I gave you money, why didn't you spend it properly? I gave you health, I brought all of the ummah together, why didn't you capitalize on those ideas? And this is my message to you. If you haven't, just do it. Not Nike do it, but do it Malay do it. Like do it in Malaysian style, like just do it. Don't wait for people to do it. Start yourself and watch how it snowballs. These guys did it on their own, and now they're getting, from all over the different places. And I want to show you just one last thing. I promise one last thing. Can you go on your phones quickly and go to voteforpeace.info? So, what we had in the UK, this may not apply here, but it may apply here somewhat. So, many people said, I want to punish genocide, but I don't know how. Voteforpeace.info. Why did I remove my browsing cache? There we go. So one day I'm in San Francisco, I'm having dinner, and a brother said, Brother Sami, I emailed you 5 times, you didn't reply to a single email. I told him, say Wallah. He said, Wallah. I said, oh. So anyway, he said, Sami, I heard you and Jalal talking about how great it would be if people could just go to the ballot box and they know who to support for those who have a firm stance against genocide. So I set up this thing called voteforpeace.info, and I set up a database. You put in, it shows you all the information. Now I'm just going to put a random California address in here. Don't ask me why California. It's just so somehow the first address that came in. 1 second, guys. Just bear with me. Scroll down, find it. 1 second. We go Google random address in California. Just bear with me, guys. Bear with me. I'm almost done. Random address, California. Right. Copy. I love the silence. It's nice when I'm quiet, isn't it? Here we go.
It's nervous when you're quiet.
There we go. Copy. Now I put it in here. Vote for peace. Tab. Yeah. No, not MH Connect. Malaysia Airlines, please. There we go. So you put the address in California, and what it does is it tells you for the US presidential election, these are the anti-genocide candidates and these are the pro-genocide candidates. And in the US senator race, and in the US representative, and at the state assembly level, you go lower and lower, and in the California state senator, and the county board of education, and in the state attorney election, and in the Los Angeles County Superior Court Justice. This app got 3 million hits on election day in America. My point is, the ummah wants to move. No one says, should they move or not? But what are we doing? Like what are you doing in order to facilitate it? How have you molded your life in a way that enables the community to do what you are asking the ummah to do? Don't ask the ummah to move. You move and watch how the ummah follows you. And that's why we're here today. It's not for you to hear from me. You guys have heard it all in the podcast before. People are now making jokes. He repeats the same content every single time. You need new content. I told them, Wallahi, I wish that the genociders could create new content of their own. I wish they could stop the content they keep producing, the genocide. I wish they could have a new content of ceasefire. They don't get bored of their same content. So let's not get bored of the content that's denouncing genocide. When they get bored, then let's get bored. But the reason why this message is the same is because the situation is still as it is. But the message here is simple. There is a good idea sitting in this room. Start it. Don't hesitate and watch how Allah brings it. And maybe that will be the one that transforms the way that we move as an ummah. Jazakumullah khair.
Just to maybe update Sami and Jalal about the latest campaign in Malaysia.
Yeah.
So Trump has nominated this very weird character called Nick Adams as the next United States ambassador to Malaysia. He's originally from Australia, very Zionist. I mean, like publicly posted Zionist views. Well, basically, there's a campaign to ask the Malaysian government to reject, as is the right of any sovereign country to reject the nomination of any ambassador. So that's what's happening now, and again, the momentum is building, and we hope that the government will reject this guy. Yeah,
That's it.
Yeah. So we're about to close up. Is any last comments or questions? Yes.
Excellent. Just to confirm your point, I was at the Muslim Tech Fest in London. Massive, incredible, like tech for all these tech, mashallah, guys doing. And there was a guy called Iqbal Nasim who gave the opening keynote. And it was the first time I heard the idea. He said that when an investor is presented, when a startup is presenting a pitch deck, if you want to produce a successful one, then build it based on your client being Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first. What's the problem? What are you trying to fix? Why are you trying to fix it? And how will you fix it? Make it so that on Yawm al-Qiyamah, you are showing that pitch deck to Allah and you say, Allahumma, this is what I did with what you have. Whether you win or fail is irrelevant, but you say, Allahumma, this is what I intended. And this is the point that I want to make. Why are we asking ourselves what we should do? Why are we feeling the pain? We're living in nice, like comfortable, I'm not nice, but like comfortable houses. We're driving cars, you know, we're going to go eat afterwards. We're walking in nice sanctuary and the like. Objectively, as far as material means are concerned, we're living the life. So why do you feel the pain? Because there's something more to life. And this is the hardest part, I think, for me as a Muslim. And I only say this about myself. I'm not going to project this on anyone. Belief in Allah is easy. Submission to Him is hard. Shaitan believes in Allah. But Shaitan didn't accept the role that Allah had assigned for him. He didn't want to embark on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My father, sometimes, the biggest criticism he has of me whenever I go home, my father's not the kind of person to say, well done, my son. I go in, I'm like, Baba, how you doing? He's like, why did you make that stupid joke? Why did you say this? Why did you say? Anyway, so one day, he said to me, Sami, I want you just to caution you about something before you go to America, before you go to Malaysia. Son, I noticed in your speeches that you are trying to convince people to do what's right with the promise that they'll be okay in this dunya. You're trying to sell them dunya to tell them to do what's right. I told him, but there's nothing wrong with that, Baba. He goes, but beware of twisting the social contract between man and his Lord. The social contract between the Ansar and the Prophet Muhammad was, when they said to him, Ya Rasulullah, what is our reward if we do what is right? You know, the Quran says that they feed the poor and they provide welfare, asking no reward. What's our reward, Ya Rasulullah, if I choose to embark on a path of, if I choose to go out of my way for what's right? And I went quiet. And my dad said to me, think about it, son. If Rasulullah had said to them, gave them political argument, that you guys will be the successors, you'll be the leaders of the community, and every leader will come from you, no Muslim would have objected. Everybody would have said, okay, sure. If he had said to them that 50% of the billions collected in zakat around the world every year would go only to Ansar and the descendants because they gave the Prophet ﷺ what he needed when he needed it. Would any Muslim have objected? Probably not. So son, tell me, he says to me, what was the social what did his Prophet ﷺ say their reward is if they do what's right? He told them Al-Jannah, and they said that's sufficient for us. But they didn't say it like in a kumbaya way. When the Quraysh came in Badr, when they brought the sanctions on Malaysia, not Malaysia, I don't wish any ill from Malaysia. When they brought it on Tunisia, I'll take my father's country, Allah, because there's a coup, there's a dictator and whatever. And when they brought the sanctions on Tunisia, the Ansar, when in Badr, when the Prophet ﷺ is going out, Rasul ﷺ is not sure if this is what I meant. He's not sure if the people who originally said we want to take action for Gaza, if they're going to follow him. So he says in the seerah, when you read it with eyes, like move the lovey-dovey eyes of the Prophet ﷺ for a second and read it as an objective historical book. He says to them, Ashiru alayya. And the Muhajirin are confused. They're like, he's not talking to us. And the Ansar, Sa'd Mu'adh says, Ya Rasulullah, ka'annaka turiduna, as if you are seeking reassurance, Ya Rasulullah, from us. And he says, and if I am, they tell him, Ya Rasulullah, we made a pact with you that you said if we stand with you and go struggle with you, we will get Jannah. If that pact still stands, we'll go with you. And they could have said, the guys brought the Zionists against us. Why? Just hand them over and go back to live in a comfortable life. They could have said it in Uhud. He's lost the battle. We've lost people of our own over some message, and all he promised us is Jannah. He doesn't even promise us 5% GDP growth. They could have said in Khandaq, he only has a trench. He doesn't even have a plan like how to drive them out. Why are we compromising our own security and stability for the promise of Jannah? They kept going. And when he conquered Mecca, let me tell you about these people. And I promise this is the part. Because I dream of being like these. I'm not like this. I dream of being like these people. When he enters Mecca, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he's dividing the spoils between the people of Mecca. And the Ansar look at him and they say, look, we delivered him to victory. And look now how he's treating his family. It's like he's forgotten all about us. And forgotten about the gathering in KL when we hosted him and treated him to good, I don't know, satay and the like. Rasulullah can hear them. So he goes to them and he gathers them and he says to them, Ya Ansar, if you were to say to me that, Ya Muhammad, you came to us with nothing, we gave you everything, no one would blame you. They're too embarrassed to say anything. He told them, Ya Ansar, if you were to say to me, Ya Muhammad, you came to us a refugee and we gave you. And remember what they did? They split their houses in half. They split their wealth in half. They didn't put them in refugee camps or refugee tents. They put them in their homes. Not the way we do with some of our refugees in this ummah today. Muhammad says to them, how do you feel then that I divide the spoils of the dunya amongst them, but you go home with the Prophet of Allah? Remember, he's finally come home after being driven out of Mecca. And they tell him, Ya Rasulullah, that's all we wanted. That's all we want is to bring you home. When he dies, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, New York Times would have reported beef between Ansar and Muhajirin. Who will be Khalifa? Which one? Who contributed more? They follow Abu Bakr, then they follow Umar, then they follow Uthman, then they follow Ali, then they follow Muawiyah, then they follow the others. They don't ask it for themselves. Do you know why I believe submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so hard? Am I at a stage where I can say to the ummah, do what's right because it's right? And whatever comes as a result, we'll weather it. We'll be fine. Whatever comes. Are we at that stage yet? Or do we need to paint a million political scenarios just to say that doing what's right and we'll be fine at the end? And this is what scares me the most. What scares me about myself. Am I ready to do it for just Jannah, get your blood pumping and your veins pumping? Because when you stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we may not see Jerusalem liberated. The Prophet ﷺ never saw Jerusalem liberated. He didn't even see Islam in Malaysia in Kuala Lumpur. He didn't even try satay chicken. Didn't even see Salamat Datang on the billboards. You know, didn't hear people say Teramagase and all these other things. He didn't hear it. Rasulullah didn't hear it. But did he need to? He didn't. He did enough to stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Allah to admit him to Jannah. On the day of judgment, when you stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can you stand honestly in front of Allah and say, Ya Rasulullah, they told me it was political lunacy to stand against genocide. I did it anyway. They told me it was so illogical and stupid to take a firm, all-in stance against genocide. I did it anyway because, Ya Allah, you gave a promise of Jannah for those who do it, and that was enough for me. I wait for the day that is enough for the ummah, inshallah. And I think that's when we do. But I'm not saying the ummah is doomed. We're making a change. We're learning. We're growing. We're like a traumatized person that's walking, and inshallah we'll go running again soon, inshallah. And may Allah give us victory, inshallah, in this dunya and in the akhirah. And I hope one day we'll sit with the Prophet. My dream is that I sit with him. It's not in this dunya. Whatever happens in this dunya, Ali Izetbegovic, at the end of his book, Inescapable Questions, the Bosnian president during the war, he has a sentence where he says, if Allah was to give me the choice to live again in this dunya, I would reject it. I don't want to live in this dunya. But if I had to, I'd live my life the same way as I lived it. Meaning I had no regrets about the choices I made. My dream is not something in the dunya. My dream, and wallahi, this is my dream. My dream is that when we meet the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we will tell him about this meeting in Kuala Lumpur. We'll tell him about what the dunya. We'll tell him about the efforts that we made. We'll tell him about the boycott. We'll tell him, Ya Rasulullah, we didn't see you, but we kept going. We didn't know you. We didn't see you. You weren't sitting with us. We still moved in your name. Ya Rasulullah, we heard your message. We didn't hear it from your own voice, but we believed it anyway. Ya Rasulullah, we kept going for no other reason than that I wanted to have this day, Ya Rasulullah, where I would sit with you and say to you, Jazakallah khair, that you lived the life of struggle so I could be saved. You sacrificed the life of comfort so I could be saved. And Ya Rasulullah, I followed your way. I lived the life of struggle. I'm now with you here. And he will say to us, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he will say, I will offer you something better. Let's get up now and go. Ya Rasulullah, where are we going? Allah is about to reveal his veil to those servants who loved him and did everything for him alone. Jazakumullah khair.
I was just, wow. I was just going to wrap things up, but I just noticed a hand at the back. Just last question or last comment from Ya Muhammad, Saudara Waf, please. Yeah.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Yusuf, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص بما أوحينا إليك هذا القرآن وإن كنت من قبله لمن الغافلين. Indeed, in this book, we tell you the best of stories, stories that before you heard them, you were ignorant of. What are the stories that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you? He tells you that Yusuf alayhi salam was betrayed by his own brothers. And then he was thrown in a well, then sold into slavery. Then he was falsely accused and thrown into prison. And then he was forgotten about in prison and he spent many years there. But despite all of those trials, he came out Al-Aziz. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you that Nuh alayhi salam spent 900 years calling on his people to do what's right. Not 2 years, not 18 months. He spent 900 years until he said, Rabbi inni da'awtu qawmi layla wa nahara falam yazidum du'ai illa firara wa anni kullama da'awtum litaghfira lahum ja'alu asabi'ahum fi adhanihim wastaghshaw thiyabahum wa asarru wastakbaru istikbara. Allahumma, I've called on my people day and night, and the more I call on them, the more they just seem to run away from me. And when I call on them, so you might forgive them, I just tell them stop the genocide. They put their fingers in their ears, they cover their faces, and they treat me with arrogance. Allah tells you that despite Nuh's frustration, he was saved, and the other people, the oppressors, they were flooded. Allah tells you, you're at the stage where he's frustrated, there's victory coming. Allah tells you the story of Musa alayhi salam, how over and over his people continue to doubt him. He splits the sea for them. He goes and brings the Torah for them. But in the end, Musa alayhi salam is saved from Pharaoh, even when Pharaoh kills all of the babies. Allah tells you, after trial will come ease. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you, فَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَانْظُرْ كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Travel the world and see what was the result of the oppressors before you. We took a group of New Yorkers to Uzbekistan. Nadeem Firko over there was with us in Uzbekistan. We went to Bukhara, where Genghis Khan had destroyed the whole city, but he left behind the minaret. A 17-year-old boy stands in front of the minaret on the group. And I told him, you know, Genghis Khan stood where you stood there. And he looked at me and he went, Sami, brother, do you know what I find so amazing here? I said, what? He goes to me, Genghis Khan was here, but he's no longer here. He tried to destroy Islam here. He left, Islam stayed. In Samarkand, there is a hotel that used to belong to a Russian noble. It's a UNESCO protected heritage site. This Russian noble reportedly wrote in his diary that here in Uzbekistan, we've conquered Islam and Allah. Well, I took the group into the courtyard. They said, we want to go to our rooms first. I said, no, go to the courtyard first. They went to the courtyard, they sat down. They said, Sami, why are we sitting here? I told them, because here is where he sat and said, we conquered Allah. He left, Allah stayed, and Muslims from New York came and stayed in his place here. When you go to Bosnia, you go and see, abandoned by the international community. The Ummah basically just made dua or some limited weapons here and there or the like, but nothing really of any particular significance. Mitterrand said Bosnia doesn't belong, let the Muslims have the disadvantage.
The Clinton didn't intervene when they committed the genocide in Prijedor. The British Foreign Secretary said that this is a painful but necessary reconstruction of Christian Europe. Mladic, when he committed the genocide in Srebrenica, said, I will erase every Muslim from Bosnia. Mladic is gone, disappeared, vanished. Islam and the minarets are rebuilt in Bosnia. Banja Luka, 18 mosques in 1993, all destroyed by Mladic. He turned them into garbage, dumps them parking lots, and said, I made it so you will always step over Islam. Islam will never come back. Go to Banja Luka today, all 18 mosques are rebuilt. And it has 26 mosques today, and the Muslim families, they went and they moved back. Go and see these stories. The Ummah is not in your books. The Ummah is out there. Go and inherit these memories. Go and inherit these stories. Captain America is fake. Bosnia is real. The Avengers are fake. Uzbekistan is real. Go to South Africa. Go and see these stories because you see the Ummah differently. And I finish with this point just to highlight it. Last year in August, we had a group also from New York. They're coming down Mount Pren, beautiful mountain in Konitz. He's going to be like, you didn't mention my city, Mustard. In any case, we're going Pren Mountain coming down. The New Yorker asks the Bosnian driver and says to him, after seeing Srebrenica, seeing Mostar, which was the Hiroshima of the Bosnian War, now it's rebuilt, you would never even guess that it was a city that was destroyed. He tells him, I don't mean to be rude, but after coming back from Srebrenica, hearing the stories, seeing the persecution, seeing how they executed your leaders and committed genocide, and the international community was complicit. I don't mean to be rude, Aldin, he said, but how are you still Muslim? Aldin stops the car and tells him, you see those hills over there, my brother? He says, yes. When I was a kid, you could hear them in the nighttime. They would say, we're coming to get you. We're going to kill you. There'll be none of you left here. Everybody's quiet. And then he says, do you hear them today? He says, my brother, the reason why we're still Muslim is because what you say is true. International community can abandon you. The Ummah maybe only makes dua for you. But if you notice, my brother, we're still here. We won. Because if Allah doesn't abandon you, you will always win. So how can we abandon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When you inherit these stories, there was an American came to Banja Luka. I took him there 2 weeks ago. I was in Sarajevo before this. I went to London 5 days, then came here. He was telling me, I hated your message in America when you said, what's the worst that's going to happen to you? Because you don't understand how bad it could get for us here in America. When he went to Banja Luka and he came back, he's on the bus. Do you know what he said to me? He goes to me, Sami, you're not very eloquent. I said, what do you mean? He goes, now I understand what you meant when you said that it wouldn't be so bad for us here in America. You measured it based on Banja Luka, where it was destroyed, ethnically cleansed, and the Muslims went back. We were measuring it based on our own comforts in America. Inherit these stories. When I come to Malaysia, I'm not here just to have a good time. Your story belongs to me. I am owed these stories. They are my stories. They are my ancestors. They are my people, my ummah. Islam is here. It belongs to me. I need to know these stories so I can understand how you have preserved the Muslim identity with China breathing down your neck and the Americans, and you guys trying to balance between the two. But we don't tell our stories. We don't invest in our stories. We don't invest in these creative arts. And then we wonder why we're unable to have the lens to interpret the seerah. And wallahi, this is the final point. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, there's a question I asked myself when I was 17 and I could not figure it out. Why did Allah not give the full Quran to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in the first revelation? Why did he only give him a bit of it? And why is it when he gave him only a bit of it, why didn't he tell him, go and mull this over and then come back for a new part? Why did Allah say instead, you have this bit, now go and call people to Allah, to la ilaha illallah? You'd be like, wait, I need to perfect myself. I need to be ready. I need resources. I need to be the perfect Muslim before I go and do what's right. Why didn't Allah give him the full Quran? Here's my theory, and the theory of some Mufassirin, before anybody says he's creating a bid'ah madhab. I think that the reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not give him the full Quran is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam needed to go through certain life experiences to understand the ayat that Allah would reveal, and until he went through those experiences, Allah would not reveal the Quran so that he could truly understand it for what it is. And I think that the reason why we have so many people who read the seerah but don't grasp it is because the lens with which they read it, the iOS software, I don't know I'm talking so much about Apple, I'm Ahl Samsung wal Jama'ah, but anyway, the Android software and the like is not fitted properly. Alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed us with resources. Allah has blessed us with the ability to learn these stories. You guys are in a haven. If I try to do some of these stories in the UK, it's expensive, it's tougher. You're in a Muslim majority country. Erdogan showed you a model with Ertuğrul.
What are the Malaysian heroes? Like Firallah, I said the same thing to him, by the way. I don't know what he's going to do with it. Apparently he's got some, but inherit those stories and you'll find that people will view the Ummah for what it is and the Ummah will come back to being great again. A long answer for a short question.
Ooh, may you long be the carrier pigeon of our stories. Ladies and gentlemen, Sami Hamdi, thank you so much. Thank you.
Khairy, I would like to say he's never taken me to an industrial estate in Wembley before. For me,
You're in
you're
Luton.
privileged.
May you never go Luton. I'm joking. My wife is from there.
Thank you, everyone. Terima kasih.
Thank you. Alhamdulillah. How are you doing, brother? So good to see you. Yes.
You should do a creative Muslim.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. You should do a creative Muslim. It'll work well.
Yeah, we should go.
Yeah, we should.